Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know series question is, do you know the backdrop to Carnivale and its association with the season of Lent? As most people know, Carnivale means goodbye to meat or getting rid of meat. And it has an association with Lent, but in order to understand where it came from, it's important to go back into the history and realize that Carnivale predates Christian times. It actually was a festival that most agricultural society in Northern Europe actually used to celebrate, if you want, the coming of spring. And it was typical of European celebrations, especially in the Roman Empire, which always got associated with a great deal of feasting, a great deal of eating of food, drinking of wine, and associated with many fertility rites in the pagan world. The food during the winter, especially in a harsh and long winter, the food was running scarce. And as the spring came into being, there was promise of good food, new food, fertility, and so on. And so as the food started to wear out and possibly damage or be turn bad, they decided that as spring came, it would be a time to have this great festival. And that festival turned out to be a carnivale, using all meat products and food and associated with meat, fish, and eggs. And they would use this and celebrate a huge festival that turned into a kind of a pagan fertility rite, if you want. When Christianity came into being and began to establish the season, what came to be known as the season of Lent, a 40-day preparation for the celebrating the Paschal mystery at the Easter season. When Lent was established, it became a period of extreme fast and abstinence from meat and so on. And what they did is, instead of trying to typically overcome the many festivals that were evident in pagan society, what they did is they kind of baptized it and allowed it in terms of spring festival and so on. But they didn't want it to interfere with Lent, which was a period of intense fasting and abstinence. So it was recommended, and the people realized this, that as Lent began, they had to, consume the food that wasn't permitted during Lent. And the food that wasn't permitted during Lent would have been meat, any sort of meat products, as well as any dairy products, so cheese, eggs, and so on. And so what would happen is, as Lent approached, people began to say, we need to do something with the food, and therefore they started to gather around these festival times and start to consume all that would not be allowed to be eaten during the Lenten season. And so the word developed from that name Carnivale, saying getting rid of meat or saying goodbye to meat, which wouldn't have been allowed to eat during the Lenten season. And so the Carnivale tradition developed in a Christian context as a time to consume food, especially in a period of no refrigeration, to consume food that would not be allowed to be eaten during Lent. And so it turned into a major party celebration before Lent. As a matter of fact, the Tuesday before Lent was a time where one was expected to go to confession. As a matter of fact, in the tradition, it's still referred to, especially the English tradition, is still referred to as Shrove Tuesday. And shrove comes from an English word meaning to be shriven, which means that once a person went to confession, the confessor would give them a penance, but what that penance would be written down on a piece of paper and prescribed, if you want, like a prescription, and the person would follow through on the penance, and then at the end, when they were absolved, it would be known that they would be shriven. So Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, was a day when one was expected to go to confession as the season of Lent began. But it also got the association of consuming of a lot of lard and meat products and so on, so much so that in the French tradition, and even to this very day in New Orleans, you have what we call Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, the consuming of fat on a Tuesday just before the beginning of Ash Wednesday or the season of Lent. Today, much of the Carnivale traditions, both in Europe as well as in the United States, like New Orleans, are no longer associated with the season of Lent. And it's basically, in many ways, it has gone back. Many people celebrate Carnivale and Mardi Gras with essentially going back to the pagan fertility rite tradition and resuming the original pagan character of Carnivale and Mardi Gras. So I hope this has helped in some ways to explain Carnivale and its association with the season of Lent, and I hope you will return once again to More Do You Know question to enhance your knowledge of your faith and your relationship to God. Thank you very much.